But obviously, the gamers are dead articles. That wasn't the right approach to go about this, was it?
You think? No, but it okay. This is something I don't think people realize is that like the gamers are dead articles are because the press believe that they artificially created the gamer persona. They, in hubris, thought that the gamer persona was actually something that they created as a marketing tool, and that they projected an image of the hyper consuming, you know, male gamer type who loves, standing in queues and lines and wearing fuzzy hats and whatnot. That's something they believe they created, and therefore, since they created, they can put it down and tell everyone else not to cater to this. They thought that they're the origin of the gamer identity. They're not, and because they, in a sense, thought they were in charge, they were told, no, you don't make the culture. It's similar to the people who do the same thing with IP. Just because Disney owns the IP, does it mean that they can do anything they want to with whatever beloved franchise we have? The answer is no. Just because they have the IP and they have the right to be the speaker for that IP does not mean that they own it and can do whatever they want to, hyperspace ramming and whatever else they want to do to destroy the lore of Star Wars or whatever IP we're talking about. So the gamers made the same hubris. Not gamers. The gaming press had the same hubris.
Why wouldn't the games press just say, "Hey, look, you know what? Some people are upset. We have maybe made some mistakes. Let's own up to them. Let's implement some reforms. Let's slap a couple people on the wrist, and this whole thing will blow over." Why not just do that?
I don't know. I really don't. Like that would have solved everything at the very beginning. It wouldn't have blown up like it did there. It would have been over in like a week. But I honestly don't know. I mean, maybe like they were all friends with each other, and I think they might have just thought that this was the moment to do it because, like, hey,
Now, obviously, you were at SPJ Airplay. I think you even got like a few seconds of speaking time. Am I mistaken on that?
yeah, I got a few seconds in there, and the reason for it was that, well, just to let you know, like my perception of it was that SPJ Airplay at the very beginning, the first three presenters, Mark Seb, um, Bukhari, Alam Bukhari, um, and
Ashkow.
Ashkow. They were the three first presenters. They had put together a presentation and they were ready to go and roll with it. But Michael Koretzky threw a wrench into the works by actually having the audience ask questions and do a back and forth on what exactly GamerGate was. So they were not able to actually. They were not prepared for a more dynamic conversation around the issues, and were taking a couple steps back. And because of that, Ren LaForme, who was the anti-Gamergate position on the other side of the panel, really started hammering them and actually making fun of them for some of the stuff they were doing. And at
Wait,
that point, go ahead.
just a point of clarification. Ren LaForme, I didn't think he was anti-GG. I thought he was a neutral journalist who was analyzing this from the Institute of the Pointer Institute.
He was, but he presented more as anti.
Okay, sorry, I
Like
didn't
there
want to
were
cut you off.
the three on the other side were supposedly neutral. But Ren LaForme himself was actually mocking the position of GamerGate, saying things like, if this was the case, and how come everyone's anonymous, and all sorts of questions like that. And like, you expect Gawker to be ethical, is what like Gawker's, you're expecting this big corporation who's known for this stuff to be ethical. He was actually saying that, and like, unfortunately, the panel on the GamerGate side were not able to deal with that kind of mockery. So basically, when Koretzky opened the floor, I grabbed the mic. Well, didn't grab it, but he actually offered it to me, and I said, "Okay, I want to talk and say something," and dropped the hammer on Ren LaForme because letting him know, like, hey, this is what they're doing. This is why people are hiding. And if you're going to mock us for this kind of stuff, like, you realize that our lives could be destroyed because we're here. And for him to dare make fun of us for all these kind of things, like, this is the reason why we're here. And pretty much dropped the mic on him and said, hey, and that actually helped turn the conversation around because people then began asking questions of it. Now that's part of the moment that I'm really proud of, is I was able to help turn the conversation around in just a few seconds. So I was really glad I was able to do that. But I was really, really mad.
Has Red reached out to you recently about this or in the past?
Ren LaForme? No,
Yeah.
he hasn't. But like, I mean, like beyond Airplay. I mean, actually, there were a couple other things that happened at Airplay that I don't think you know about. But like, there was a small interview done with Games Journalism Network, who actually collapsed because of SPJ Airplay 2, which never came around. But they had a small interview with me then. And then afterwards, when the panel switched around with Milo Yiannopoulos, Christina Hoff Sommers, and Kathy Young, who were talking about the more social justice end of Gamergate, there was a bomb scare, if you remember. But what happened was that as we were outside and we're gathering around, one of the editors for the Miami Herald, and the senior editor, I believe, was tweeting about how Gamergate did a bomb scare on them. And when I saw that, I went up to Michael Koretzky and said, "Look, Michael, this is the reason why there's a problem with this, is because you have people who are in charge of these newspapers who don't even do their basic research of what this is about and what even the event is about. They don't even know that the pro Gamergate people are here, and they're blaming Gamergate for the bomb scare." And he said, "Well, he's right over there, the senior editor." So I ended up walking to the senior editor and explaining to him in a few seconds like what Gamergate's about, what we're doing there, what we're trying to talk about, and he ended up apologizing about it and actually reformatting his statement on Twitter. So those are the two major moments I was really kind of proud of at the time, because it's like, this is the kind of problem that we're having, is like low information people making all these generalized statements, following the narrative that they were told without actually doing any basic research. But that's journalism.
Now, how do you think that the SPJ Airplay event went?
I think that in terms of vindicating what Gamergate was about, it actually did its job. It actually also legitimized the fact that, yes, there were ethical violations on the part of the Gawker Network, Kotaku, and a whole bunch of others. It legitimized the fact that there should have been rules that followed, and and I'm glad that we also pointed that it was pointed out the ethical guidelines were changed. It changed a lot of the conversation around there. However, and this is the problem that everyone realized at the very end of it, they have no actual authority to stop or fine or do other punitive damages to people, in terms of like if they do something that's truly unethical and actually a lie in terms of newspaper or one way or another. And there was discussion about like, what can you do, and can you actually make it an enforcement arm? And then the question is, do you want it to be an enforcement arm? Because once it's an enforcement arm, it'll push politics one way or the other, and you don't want that. So I mean, like, that's kind of like that's the problem with that. Like, how can you solve that problem? Like, yes, like, at least with the fact that we were heard and the fact that we were vindicated for what we were doing was in itself a victory, and a great place to say, like, hey, like, even the SPJ has agreed that the gamers had a real issue with these things, and and the business should be reformed. But beyond that, I really don't know like there was anything else that could have been done. It was a good catharsis for a lot of us, but at the same time, like, what can be done going forward? And now we're 10 years later, 9 years later, we're looking at all the fake news articles and all these people doing their own narrative shifting. It's more obvious nowadays, thankfully, but like back then, like, at least now people are more aware, and that really is the big thing, is that the trust in media is now at the lowest point of almost all of all of polling history, and rightfully so. And I'm just thankful to be part of that, as well as the gamers who are the ones who actually made people realize the media is lying to you, and you need to really look into things yourself.
Did you have any reason to think that the bomb threat was legitimate, or have any concerns about your safety?
I had a lot of concerns about my safety, because I didn't know at what point in time this thing actually would have been real in one way or another. Because as you know, later on, you had like, I was actually worried. The first bomb threat I had was GG in DC. GG in DC was one of the first bigger meetups. It had Milo in it, Kathy Young, and Christina Hoff Sommers over in DC. DC is pretty close to where I live, so we made a big trip up to go there. And there was a bomb threat that happened there. So I expected danger to happen at the next time, maybe even possibly a riot of some sort. Thankfully, it's not Berkeley, it was Miami, because if it was Berkeley, then there definitely would have been violence.
I'm
So,
actually interviewing Michael Koretzky next week. Is there anything you think I should ask him?
I'll just tell him I said hi. I don't know if you remember me. Actually, I'd like to ask him, like, what are his thoughts now? Because now, I mean, the thing is, like, now, fake news meme came out with Trump and all-time low trust in media, and part of it, I think, like, is because of this. People weren't listening to what we were talking about. We weren't telling. Like, we're telling them, fix yourself. You know, hey, the media is lying. They're not even doing basic research. If they're willing to lie about video games, what else they're willing to lie about? So if you can ask them, like, hey, what are your thoughts on like how trust in media has happened since then? That would be an interesting perspective, because I want to know what his thoughts are. Because for me, it's like, nobody trusts you guys anymore. We warned you. You know, I mean, I don't want to stand on that and make, it's like, hey, you didn't listen to us. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't Michael's fault. But I wonder what he if he laments what's going on.